Every single iota, every scrap of research we've done has one overriding conclusion, and that is at the centre of every commercial transaction is the customer.
And I'm assuming I'm focusing over there somewhere. Yeah, yeah.
Okay, so first question will be, Tony, what is spin?
We're often asked, what is spin and why is it so successful? Why is it so prolific across so many different industries, so many different countries? And is it still relevant today as it was when it was first derived 50 years ago? And most importantly for us, will it still be relevant in 50 years' time? I think to answer those questions, the best way to look at it is to go back to how spin was first discovered.
One day someone said, why don't you study sales? That's an interaction. And I said, ugh, sales? I could be a respectable academic, not my thing.
I've come across some great salespeople and you say, how did you do that? And they will say, oh, we gave 110%. And I go, oh God, really? Can we answer the question without resorting to cliche? And the answer is no, they can't, because they haven't been given the objective scientific framework about how good communicators communicate with their customers. That's what spin gives people.
Spin selling is so resilient because it's not a fleeting trend. It's a timeless methodology rooted in the essence of human communication.
Spin, I think, has taught me better questions, but most importantly, really listening for those needs and their pain points.
Do you know, in the average sales force, the top 10% of salespeople outsell the bottom 10% by a factor that always exceeds 3 to 1. And no one knows why.
As AI becomes this kind of ubiquitous presence, the human touch, those skills that ensure you can deal with people in an intelligent and empathetic way, they will become the real secret weapons for sales success.
Don't customers today buy because they have problems to solve? As long as they buy because they have problems, spin will be relevant.
In sales, where persuasion meets profit, spin selling has emerged as a kind of sales North Star, a methodology that guides people towards genuine customer insight and sales effectiveness. But behind this iconic sales approach lies a story of research, innovation, and a profound understanding of human psychology. Welcome to a journey that uncovers the truth behind the success of spin selling, a methodology not just about sales transactions, but about the very fabric of human connection. An experience that thousands of salespeople value, and so successful that they are celebrating the first 50 years of Spin's evolution and adherence to a brand promise that really has stood the test of time.
People often ask me, how did you get into spin and into the sales area in general? In fact, it was rather reluctantly. I was at Sheffield University a research fellow, studying interactions between people and how to measure them. You know, patients and therapists, teachers and pupils, worthwhile interactions like those. One day someone said, why don't you study sales? That's an interaction.
So if you imagine walking into a sales call between two people, and the buyer at some point in that sales call starts to give some very strong explicit needs for what it is that the seller is selling or something that the seller wants to do in the sales process. You might look at that and say, that's a very lucky salesperson. But if you look at plenty of those calls, you'll then find that that happens a lot in successful sales calls. So that kind of makes you think it's probably not lucky. So then you ask the buyer, why did you do that? And invariably a buyer will say, Well, because the conversation made me change the way I think about my situation. But then if you ask the salespeople what they did, they will tell you. But every salesperson will tell you something different, and they'll tell you something different for every sales call. So that makes it hearsay. It doesn't give you anything you can hang on to be able to teach other people how to do something. We watched thousands and thousands of these sales calls, tens of thousands, to be able to distill what was happening between the two people in a successful sales call. And basically, that's where Spin came from.
We decided that we had to get some pretty big samples to do this sort of work. And the easy way to do it was to train sales managers to collect data for us. So we trained them to a research standard, which technically would be a 0.85 or above correlation against standardized material. And we set them loose with their salespeople, observing them in real sales calls. And in that way, we were able to collect some 35,000 sales calls, huge data sample with managers initially in 13 countries and then another 6 or 7 countries added on to that. Very early on, we knew that salespeople who were successful were asking more questions. We found very quickly that they were offering solutions late on and that there was some pattern in their questioning. And that led to a provisional version of the Spin model.
Spin is a distillation of those things that salespeople do relative to their buyer in a sales call. So it's a call execution model. It varies slightly from industry to industry in the ratio of the type of behaviours that salespeople use, and it varies slightly from culture to culture in the ratio and the way that people ask questions or make statements. It means that it works across all different industries, all different cultures, all different countries.
I see Spin as a classical methodology that is here to stay and can be integrated with, future technology elements being developed.
When an organisation wants to introduce Spin to a sales team, it's often because it's been recommended by someone who is already Spin trained and has been using it for years as the bedrock of their sales skills. Everyone, it seems, has a Spin story to tell, and they love to share them. So many people we speak to started out in sales, ended up in other professions, but continue to use the Spin methodology as a persuasive tool because it's become ingrained in the way they communicate, because it works so well.
So the key aspect of Spin that I think supports a professional is the clarity of questions that really enables them to get to the heart of the problem. That tailored process of questioning, that honed process that Spin gives you, enables you not just to glibly go in with any old solution, but the solution that counts. And maybe it counts because sometimes the person hasn't even realised that's what they needed. They always, maybe are thinking more superficially, oh, quick, I need this, I need that. But actually, when you go deeper with some of those Spin questions and really looking at the implications and the benefits, that's when you've really got the heart of what you're going to do.
We are actually programmed as a species not to empathise particularly with people of difference to us. So we're going to teach people how to be empathic. Good luck with that. I think when I speak to sales managers and I speak to people who are responsible for the competence and capability of sales teams, very often they will talk about things like empathy and building rapport and emotional intelligence and all the rest of it. And all of that is great. I don't have any problem with that. I just don't know how to do it. And what Spin gives you is a way of building rapport through asking questions. And in actual fact, there's an academic study a year or so ago which said, what is it that makes people like other people? And what they found was likability was significantly increased if the person who they were judging as likable had asked more questions. So you want to build rapport. Don't do it as some kind of separate add-on activity that you do at the start of a meeting. Build rapport through asking good quality questions, through showing how interested you are in the individual on the other side of the table. And to a certain extent, understanding what people's problems, challenges, opportunities are, understanding what their requirements are, helping them to articulate what it is that they really want, Sounds like you're involved in some kind of counselling session, doesn't it? But you're not. Actually, what you're trying to do is to understand what value you can bring to that customer. And that is the best way of building a relationship with people that I can think of. Because being on the same side of the problem and looking at that and saying, how can we solve this together, is at the heart of good consultative selling. Most importantly, it's at the heart of Spin.
Although Spin was derived from the interactions between sellers and buyers, it is in fact a communication tool that can be used in all sorts of environments. It's used in consultancy, it's used in teaching, it's used in presentations. It's a persuasive tool, but it's one that isn't offensive. It's one where it gets people to think differently. So there are many different areas of communication that people can use that Spin model. And I think the point about the fact it is communication means it's very people-centered. It's not just about what the model is and that will work in all circumstances. It's about a relationship-building tool between two people having a conversation.
When Spin came to be added in my weaponry, it helped me big time. I will share an experience, but it won't be a good one. I was meeting with the head of HR of a major IT corporation in Athens, and I was super well prepared. It was our first meeting. I had some good references. I had prepared my Spin and problem and implication questions and everything, and I really got the guy to share all the pain points of their salespeople. And then I said to him, "That's great. Awesome." And the moment I said awesome, apparently showing no empathy at all, I realized that I had made a huge mistake. So the guy looks at me, cracks a smile, nice smile, thank God he was a polite man, and he says to me, "I guess it's awesome because you can help us with our problem, George." and I realized that Spin is an awesome sales model, but at the same time, if you want to leverage Spin, you have to know how to listen, really listen, and be empathetic with the problems of your customers.
So I'm one of those people with good ideas, I think, and I'd like more people to take them up. So I wanted to look at a way by which I could use Spin to convince people that this idea was absolutely unmissable. And so I just remember talking to the team and to Tony about how I could adopt a Spin technique, but to sell an idea versus selling a product.
Off the Menu was conceived, researched and written with a Year 6 class from Gweneside Primary School in Sheffield, and in response to a brief from Sheffield Hallam University and Huthwaite International. Dr. Lynn Bianchi explains how the project came about.
So I brokered the relationship between the school and the business partner Huthwaite International to explore how we could use VBA in a primary school setting. This resulted from having seen animation activity in schools through the Ideas Foundation, and I thought it'd be a fabulous way for the children to communicate their learning from this project. So the thing that Spin, I think, has taught me, it's made me ask better questions. And I ask better questions because I listen more. I am quite a chatty person. I enjoy talking. I enjoy all of that. But yeah, it stopped me to really listen to what were the needs of the people in front of me, rather than me pushing my product because I knew it was brilliant and it had knobs and whistles on it and it was just going to be the best thing since sliced bread because I'd invented it, of course. But yeah, that's not the persuasive tool, isn't it? I remember being told being right isn't persuasive.
The case that I can remember that I saw an organization really making, having a big business impact using Spin was a pharmaceutical, with a pharmaceutical company that used to be my clients in the past. And the interesting thing is that they didn't only use Spin for training their sales reps. They used also Spin coaching for training their sales leaders. They used Spin marketing workshop for training the marketing people, so they prepare the collateral that can support Spin. And besides that, we had co-visits with their salespeople for being able to coach them on the job and give them feedback. And we were part of their cycle, the product cycle meetings every quarter. So what I'm trying to say is that I really saw, actually the customer saw, not me, the maximum benefits when they made it really an integral part of their sales routine, and it got to their DNA. And that was a fantastic experience for me.
If you come across spin, it impacts you because it's spin you cannot just use for a sales approach. Of course, in my different career steps, I've been in selling in all different sort of spaces of selling as well. But spin is something that is approach that you can use and apply in your daily life as well, because it's really about connecting with people.
Sometimes people say to me, spin is it's old school, but asking questions and being curious about your customers, that's still as relevant today as it's always been. So when people say spin is just for selling, absolutely, but it's so much more when you apply it properly. I see spin as a structure for conversation. It doesn't matter when you ask the question, it doesn't matter what order you ask the question, but it gets you a way of thinking when the person answers. And for me, the best part of spin was it said, stand back, start listening.
Spin is for us a foundational element to the sales approach. It gives such a structured approach to selling. It's a very simple approach, and I think that's the beauty of it.
Because it is a skills model, it means you can teach it to other people in the same way that you could teach an athletics model or a basketball model. It needs refining, it needs practicing, it needs using on the job. You can't just do it within read a book or half a day training course and expect to change your behaviour.
Spin is the original data-driven sales methodology, analysing seller data in real time to identify behavioural profiles, trends, insights, and that all-important best practice. Huthwaite's obsession with research and how data informs the skill that Spin offers has been given a huge opportunity for advancement using artificial intelligence technology that is now used as an essential co-pilot for skills development across Spin learning journeys.
How is spin selling going to cope with the future? We know it's done very well in the past, it does very well in the present, but it's the future that matters. I've got good news and bad news here. The bad news is that much of consultative selling today can be done by AI in the future. The good news is there is an emerging area of high-level selling, which is exciting and dynamic. It's about redesigning the interface between companies. When we first started doing our research, both me in the States and Huthwaite in Europe, what we found was the more problem questions you asked, the more likely you were to make the sale. Problem questions are the kind of raw material. But that's changed. Starting somewhere around 10, 12 years ago, we were finding that problem questions about future problems were far, far more powerful. As one customer put it to me, if I fall into a pit, there's 50 salespeople who can sell me a ladder to help me crawl out, but only 1 in 50 who can prevent me from falling into the pit in the first place. And that's who I want to do business with. Now, that is risk mitigation by understanding customer future problems. So the salesperson of the future will be future-oriented. They'll be looking at the problems of the future, the risks of the future, and the future redesign of the boundary between organizations.
So although the origins of spin are 50 years old, we're even more excited about the next 50 years. Obviously, people know about technology and now that's affecting the world at the moment, particularly with AI. And we see AI augmenting sales, but at the moment keeping humans at the center of that process. But what's even more exciting is that we know that as long as people do keep making decisions in the way that they are making decisions, spin will continue to be relevant not just for probably 50 years, but even beyond that.
Sales, and I'm talking about large B2B sales, are more complex today, getting more complex every day, seeing more customer stakeholders behind the buying decisions, either making the decisions or influencing the decisions. This is changing, really changing. But then this shows why the implication questions for networking the problem among the different functions, business functions involved in, and customer stakeholders are super important. And for networking the pain. Likewise, the need payoff questions for networking the gain.
Individuals who perhaps used to spend a lot of time on the road will spend much more time dealing virtually with their clients, speaking to them using all sorts of other channels. And what's really important is that the same processes, the same buying behaviours, the same requirements apply to whatever communication channel we're using. So if I'm communicating with somebody via WhatsApp or some other messaging app, or I'm communicating with them remotely via a video camera, I'm on the telephone, or I'm having the opportunity to meet them face to face, actually, the same basic principles apply, which is I need to listen to people, I need to ask them questions, I need to make sure that they're doing more of the talking so that I understand more about what their requirements are. Really interesting academic study 2 or 3 years ago, which tried to identify what Google search terms most frequently led to purchases by people who were looking for products or services online. Guess what they found? The most important global Google search terms which led to more conversions and more revenue were explicit needs. Who knew? And that idea of understanding what it is that people require, why they require it, what are the problems that they're trying to solve, what are the challenges that they're overcoming, how can we understand that in a way which is working irrespective of the communication opportunities they've got and the communication channels that we can use.
I see a world that's changing with AI technology, basically doing near enough everything for us, and machine learning taking control of so many of the different aspects of our lives. So one could question, what's the relevance of people anymore? Why can't you just just pop something into AI and you've got the answer?
Customers already know what they need to know. They just Google it. They don't need salespeople to tell them about products. The talking brochures all over the world have been failing since the 1980s. And anyone today who tries to make a significant sales call that isn't centered on creating some customer value by understanding the customer and their needs isn't going to succeed.
Salespeople in general are more and more time poor. Focus in the future is going to be around the application sustainment of learning, firstly. And secondly, how can we, embed spin in a way that it fits into the salespeople's daily routine as well. You have this human factor and you have sort of the technical element. It has to really work in tandem. I think it's going to be a different scenario in the future. But for me, spin is sort of a fundamental element of it.
When we talk about automation, and very often when we're talking about technological change, we're talking about automating the things which are repetitive, the things that can be done easily. That's not just going to happen in sales. And we could automate all of the wrong things. We could send out much more spam. That'd be great, wouldn't it? The simple fact is you can send out a lot more of it. You can send it out more cheaply. You can be more personalized to the individuals. It's still spam. So doing more rubbish stuff is not the answer. What we need to do is to free up people to do the really important stuff, the stuff that AI can't do. What we know is happening at the moment is that procurement organizations are also looking at AI. So buyers are using AI to help them buy things. And I can imagine a world which ain't that far away. In fact, it's, round the corner, where we have an AI in the buying organization communicating with an AI in the supplying organization, and no human beings are involved at all. However, where the salespeople really need to come to the party is to set up that relationship, to set up that contract, to deal with that strategic purchasing decision. And the real challenge, the real skill will be to be getting onto that framework in the first place to demonstrate that you understand that organization's business and that you have the solutions to their current and future replenishment needs. That's the real challenge for salespeople.
Inside each company, most of the productivity, most of the value creation opportunity is already being refined. But in between the company and its suppliers, the company and its customers, the company and its supply chains, the company and its partnerships and alliances, there's the capacity to redesign and realign in a way that reduces risk and a way which solves problems. And the SPIN model is useful in both those ways.
And because if you carry on doing that research, as we have done, over periods of time, it changes and changes and changes, so it keeps up with the present day, so which is why it's still relevant now, and it's going to be relevant in 50 years' time, as long as people still make decisions in the way that they make decisions, which is to weigh up what's good for them on either side of a balance and weigh up what they've got to give to get what they want. As long as that's the case, SPIN will always be relevant. Although SPIN is a 4-letter acronym for the name of a sales model, it's only 4 of the 9 behaviours that we found were very important that salespeople use in their interactions with buyers. But SPIN is more than just behaviours. It also provides a roadmap and a structure for anybody involved in selling or putting together persuasive cases. And that can be not just high-level salespeople, it could be consultants, it could be people selling on the telephone. Some organisations use this at all levels within their customer interactions.
From the first classes we taught, many of our teams picked it up very, very quickly, and they started to accelerate in terms of their time to productivity. So when someone says it's old, today it's still our most used and NPS of just under 10 still, and it's been consistent. And there's different people delivering, including myself, but other people as well. And consistently across the other regions that have now adopted it, SPIN still is our number 1 sales go-to. Everybody in our organisation comes into that and does SPIN. If they're in the sales, if they're in pre-sales, and if they are in business development. And there are other roles as well. And with that, what that's given me is connection into almost everybody that comes in to our sales organisation. And that intimacy you have with them, doing the role plays, giving them feedback, doing the different exercises, getting back with them again afterwards, building it into our practice around gamification in terms of helping people with reinforcement. It built a huge connection with me and the sales floor. And why I say that's important is because if anybody's off or anyone is not sure, John, can you do some coaching, please? I've got a deal here. I'd like to walk through the deal with you. So it's been phenomenal from that perspective because people recognise that SPIN has been hugely powerful in their success.
Huthwaite is now using AI technology as an essential co-pilot for skills development and moving into AI-powered analysis and coaching tools that will support people throughout their learning journey and beyond. These tools will enable sales leaders to provide targeted behavioural feedback and create personalised skills development plans so that they can quickly and efficiently have a real impact on the performance of their teams.
When you've got your whole sales floor doing it, then you add in, if they talk to sales, then they talk to pre-sales, and people doing the business development are doing it as well, you find that it becomes a common language. And it also gave us a common language that we can choose.
When SPIN had its origins 50 years ago, it was seen as being radical. Major sales organisations thought this can't be right, this cannot be what people are doing. 50 years on, it's still copied by many people. It's the backbone of many other sales methodologies that people profess to be new, but actually start with those building blocks of SPIN. 50 years from now, that could be totally different. Yes, there may be AI machine learning, but it'd be really interesting to see whether or not that AI machine learning actually reflects what we found 50 years ago in the way that people actually do persuade others.